In this episode, we're going to hear 3 very weird and strange encounters. But before we get to the stories, I want to mention there are 2 new channels of mine that you should definitely check out. The first is Donovan Dread 2, where I release the same great content, just a little shorter in length. Then there's Dread Captures, where we analyze various encounters that were captured on video, that were sent in to us, or that are available online. So if you're digging my content, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll keep narrating these creepy encounters. Now let's get to the stories. Hey Donovan, I really enjoy your channel. I figured if anybody would believe this, it would be you. Or at least you might listen. When I was in college, a couple of us got really deep into urban exploration. I was studying photography, and any excuse to grab crazy pictures was welcome. Thankfully, Detroit offered all kinds of opportunities. My friend Jamie said her boyfriend had been in and around some places over in Brush Park, and maybe we should check it out. I'm all for adventure, but there are some neighborhoods famous for being dangerous, and Brush Park is pretty much top of the list. I wanted to take some pictures and not get held up. Regardless, when Jamie's boyfriend showed me some of the pictures on his cell phone, I was ready to take the risk. Even with the low resolution, there were lots of clearly amazing stuff to capture. To give you an idea, Brush Park covers around 20 blocks, and has streets lined with these big rambling old German-style houses. Gables, archways, pillars, the works. Picture all that side by side with construction projects, and the juxtaposition is wild. We target a couple of blocks right over by where they tore down the Douglas projects as a key place to try and get into some houses. Any urban explorer will tell you that nighttime is when you're less likely to get rounded up. But the photographer in me knows that late afternoon into evening is the best for light. We compromised and headed over right around dusk on a Saturday. We parked at the end of the block and started walking, looking for an ideal fit. I love places that were pretty ruined, but were still navigable. I wasn't looking to fall through any floorboards or anything. This one house seemed perfect. It was huge. The roof over the porch was sagging, and some of the windows had been broken out. I snapped some pictures from the outside, and we went around back to find an inconspicuous place to climb in. The doors were still bolted, but a window into the kitchen looked like a good option. As soon as I hoisted up to the sill, something seemed off. There was that cool mildewy, dusty funk that hangs in ruined houses, but just a hint of something else. I got in and Tom and Jamie followed. Jamie immediately got creeped out and she wanted to go. Part of me felt the same way, but this place was amazing. The door out of the kitchen opened to a hallway that made my stomach all squirmy. Evidently, Tom didn't feel any of it, because he went right past me and started barging around like an idiot. There was a door in the wall by the staircase that stuck when he tried the knob. It sounds crazy, but I'm not kidding when I say that when he did. It sounded like the house exhaled through the door. He got all excited and broke out his flashlight. I came up over his shoulder to look, and it was the door to the basement. The stairs looked sturdy enough, but it was 7 kinds of dark down there. My stomach was going crazy, telling me to get out, but Tom just smiled and went tromping ahead. Jamie stayed in the kitchen, but I sucked it up and followed Tom into the basement. It was creepy as hell and completely amazing. I must have snapped 1,000 pictures before I made it 10 feet. The place was packed with all kinds of junk. My instinct was to find the tightest crevices, so I shoved my way toward the far end where the trash seemed to be the thickest. My hands were clammy, and my heart felt like it was going to jump into my throat, but I couldn't figure out why. Just before I reached for the far corner, something shifted and I held my breath. It was so dark, and I lifted my camera to see if the viewfinder could help me see. That little yellow box that frames faces was bobbing around in the middle of the screen, which was super weird because there was nobody there. Then, 2 pinpoints of light flicked on. I forget whether or not I made a sound, but Tom got all tense and asked me what was up. Before I could say anything, a whole mass of junk crashed to the side, and this thing crawled out on all 4s. It was pale to the point of being gray, and moved in kind of a slither. The back legs had those backward joints like a dog, but the front had long, dirty fingers. Its head kept twisting back and forth. tipping up like it was smelling me. I pointed my camera and clicked the shutter, and a flash lit up the whole area. The thing hunched back startled and let out this horrible hissing moaning sound. I screamed and it lunged at me. Trying to get out of the way, I stumbled back and bumped into Tom, dropping my camera. I could hear Jamie screaming, "What's wrong?" from up in the kitchen, and knew we had to get out of there. The thing lunged again. I panicked and ran. We bolted up the stairs and back down into the kitchen. I don't know if this thing was behind us or not, but I just kept saying, we have to go, over and over again. We scrambled back out the window and ran for the car as fast as we could. I'm not exactly sure what it was we saw back there, but it definitely was not human. I lost an $800 camera that day, but even worse, I lost the only evidence I might have to back up my story. I'm hoping when you read my story on your show, it will reach some people who can help me. I'm tired of my friends mocking me, and if some other people can share some similar stories, I can prove I'm not going crazy. It all started when I decided to take a walk a few weeks ago in the middle of the night. I was in Mississippi near Meridian City. I enjoy walking through nature at night to see the wildlife in the area. It's peaceful to walk at night. No one else is around. You see more when you're alone. I think I walked about 7 miles until I saw a bridge built on top of a river. I thought this would be a great place to take a few pictures to add to my Instagram. I set up my phone on the bottom of a beam and I got into position. I had my flash on, and after it went off, I went to go take a look at the pic. When I looked at the picture, I could see a light in the background. It wasn't a very big light, but still there was a light. I didn't think much of it. I saw some fireflies on the trail I took, so I assumed it was one close to the camera. I took a few more pictures and then looked around to make sure I didn't leave anything behind. My eyes scanned towards the beam where my phone was, and I saw a glowing light, this time closer. I took a closer look at it, and this is where my friends think I am seeing things. I swear I saw a woman sitting at the end of the bank. It was dark out, so I couldn't see her well, but there was a woman just sitting there. She looked like she was crying, her hands on her face and everything. I wasn't completely heartless. I walked over to the river and turned on my phone's flashlight so I could see where I was stepping and made my way over to her. I got over to where she was, and as I got closer and shined the light on where she was sitting, she was gone. I thought this was creepy, but again, I knew the mind can play tricks on you when you're tired and paranoid. So I chalked it up to me being tired and started to head home. When I got to my car, though, there she was again. She wasn't crying anymore, and she wasn't alone either. She had a man with her, and they were arguing. I didn't want to get involved in another couple's drama, so I started my car and turned on my headlights. They were gone. I really started to get creeped out, so I left the parking lot and started my GPS to go home. I drove back to my apartment and decided to sleep it off that night. I felt like I needed to sleep anyway since it was later than I was used to, and I did walk for a while. So I went to bed and I set my alarm for the morning. When I woke up in the morning, I started to look through my gallery and post the pics that I took last night. I saw one with the light again. I scrolled past it and then I saw something that made my heart stop. I saw a picture with the man I saw in the background. Keep in mind, I only ever saw a woman on the riverbank when I was at the bridge. No one else was around. It looked like he had a lantern, and he was wearing some sort of suit. What I'm trying to say is, he didn't dress like other people. The creepy part is he looked right at me. He didn't smile, he didn't wave, nothing. He just stared at me, just standing there glaring at me. I was getting very creeped out at this point, but I was curious to see what other pictures I had taken. Now this is going to be very anticlimactic for some of you, but there was nothing else in any of the pictures. No one else but me was in them, and that made me very uncomfortable. I sent a text to some of my other friends and showed them the pictures I took. I sent the one with the guy in the background, and they said that I must have not been paying attention, and some old man was walking around the same time I was. I told them that I was completely alone and I was sure of it. And then they started mocking me, asking me if I needed to get my eyes checked, or if I needed a hearing aid because I was obviously blind and deaf. I quit answering texts because at that point, they were just making fun of me. and they started saying I photoshopped the guy in the back to prank them. I decided I was going to go back and try to find any sign of someone else being there that night. I didn't have time to go back there at night because some people probably would have walked on the bridge during the day, and I wasn't going to get any clear answers if I waited. So I drove back to Meridian and walked the trail again. I saw my footprints were the only ones on the trail still. I made it back to the bridge. Before I stepped on it again, I took a picture to show my footprints were the only ones there. I sent that pic to my group chat, and they told me to quit photoshopping people in the background. I looked up, and yet again, there was no one there. But when I looked at the picture I took, I could see faintly the man again, this time walking towards the bridge. After I saw him, I didn't want to look around, and I started to walk away. I felt something was watching me, and I made it back to my car. Nothing else came from those 2 days. I've just been really paranoid ever since, and my friends went to the same bridge. They told me they didn't see anything or anyone that matched the pictures that I sent. So they kept making fun of me, saying I did it for attention. Has anyone else ever experienced anything like this? Am I just seeing things because I was alone? Or do some of you have similar stories to mine and could help me convince my friends that I didn't take any fake pictures? When I got out of high school, I enrolled in college thinking it would be just a continuation of what I was used to. But during my first semester, I realized I couldn't handle it. I don't know if I just couldn't handle the new freedom or what. I didn't have my parents breathing down my neck, and I just would never get any of my assignments done. Then I started getting into drinking, and that didn't help. I was living in Alaska, and I decided I needed a total change of scenery. I just kind of looked at the map and picked out Arizona as probably the complete opposite environment from what I was used to. I moved down there and looked for a job. After going through a few jobs like being a fast food worker and amusement park attendant, I decided to apprentice under a plumber. Sometimes the work was hard, but it paid pretty well. I hadn't had any money for my whole life. After I got better at it, I would do side work on my own, as long as it was within my skill level. One day, my boss said he was sending me out to this job that was about 100 miles away from Phoenix, which is where I was living. I was kind of surprised because most of the jobs were local, and I could always call on my boss if I needed him. But I went down there to test myself out. It was this old rundown cabin that some lady had just bought. It had old lead pipes that needed replacing, and she wanted me to make sure all the drains were working and stuff. It sounded like something I could handle. I stopped by where she was staying and she gave me the keys. By that time it was evening, but I decided I'd go ahead and head over and work through the night. I got there around 8 p.m. and set up my generator and floodlights on the exterior, and got to work running some pipe for a hose spigot. I was alone and wearing my headphones listening to some music. After prepping the outside of the cabin, I went back to my truck to get some pipe. When I turned around, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. The area outside of the floodlight's range was pitch black. I took my headphones off and listened, but I couldn't see or hear anything. I thought my mind was just playing tricks on me. After a few minutes, I put my headphones back on and got back to work. I was busy screwing some pipe brackets to the wall. Then during a song transition, I heard something strange. I could swear I heard this clicking and hissing sound. I shot upright and placed my back against the wall. I couldn't see what was making the noise, and I couldn't even really tell where it was coming from. There are snakes in the area, so I was pretty terrified about that. But I was pretty sure that snakes aren't nocturnal. But we didn't have snakes in Alaska, so I wasn't totally sure. I stood there really still, and after about 30 seconds, it stopped. I got back to work without my headphones on, and then I heard the sound again. I hated not knowing what it was. I kind of shimmied along the wall until I got to a tree growing in the yard. I climbed up it so I would have some type of vantage point. I didn't know if snakes could climb trees. I was really ignorant on the whole subject of snakes. I got myself situated on a branch and swung my headlight around the yard. There was a low fence around the lady's yard, maybe about 4 feet high. On the other side, there were all kinds of things growing, like cactus and yuccas and shrubs. It was really thick over there, so anything could have been hiding there. Then I saw a movement, and I was horrified to see these two glowing yellow eyes looking right at me. Something looked like it was crouched down right on the other side of the fence. My heart was already pounding, but then the freaking thing stood up. It looked taller than me, and I'm 6 foot tall. It had these black claws that were gripping the fence. They were huge. I could even see its sharp teeth. It looked like some kind of giant lizard, but it stood on 2 legs, so it almost seemed like it could be partly human. I don't know why I say that, but it gave me a feeling of some kind of humanoid. It had this evil presence to it. I was pretty sure it could get to me in the tree. My truck was parked in the yard about 30 feet away from me, and my keys were in it. I decided to take a chance. I jumped down from the branch and ran. About halfway there, the hissing started again. I sprinted the other 15 feet or so, then slammed the door and laid on my horn trying to scare this thing. I looked over and couldn't tell if it was still there. I moved my truck to face the spot and turned on my headlights. It wasn't there anymore, but I had no idea what direction it had gone. There was no way I wanted to leave my tools there, so I pretty much just sat in my truck until morning. The next day, I collected all my stuff, and I got the hell out of there. I tried to explain to my boss why I had to abandon the job. He wasn't happy with me at all, but he didn't fire me. He decided to give me another chance, since I've been doing a lot of work up until that point. But holy crap, I've never been so scared in my life. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think of these stories in the comments below. Don't forget that you can listen to my episodes on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. I try to upload every single day on this channel and on Donovan Dread too, where I release shorter content. Same great encounters, just a little bit shorter. Also, if you want to see crazy encounters captured on trail cams, then check out Dread Captures. It's part of the Dread Network, where we go over live footage of very strange encounters that are sent into the Facebook group or videos that are circulating on the web. Last but certainly not least, check out Lilith Dread. She releases the same great content daily on her channel. You'll find all of these links below. Thanks and take care.